You enter a room, and the air remains unchanged. You speak, and your words are stepped over like common debris. You exist, yet you are effectively invisible to the hierarchies that matter. You are suffering from the greatest modern plague of the masculine spirit, the total lack of presence. You have become a background character in your own life because you have been conditioned to believe that being nice, approachable, and talkative earns you a seat at the table. It does not. It earns you pity. It earns you the status of a tool to be used and then forgotten. Respect is not a participation trophy awarded to those who follow the rules of the masses. It is a sovereign territory that must be seized and fortified with cold, calculated precision. Today, the noise stops. I am going to show you how to occupy space and command the room without uttering a single, desperate syllable. By the end of this transmission, you will no longer be a victim of social noise. You will understand the mechanics of sovereignty, the art of becoming a gravitational force. You will learn to move like Thomas Shelby, a man who doesn't demand respect with his voice, but simply makes it the only available option for those in his presence. While the unwashed masses see a 20th century gangster, the strategist sees a 16th century masterpiece in motion. Everything Thomas Shelby executes in the mud-soaked streets of Birmingham, Niccolò Machiavelli codified in the marble halls of Italy. We are blending cold fiction with an even colder reality to reconstruct your internal architecture of power. If you are tired of being the man who constantly explains himself and are ready to become the man who is understood through his silence alone, pay attention. Subscribe to this frequency and comment, "I am sovereign," to signal your entry into the 1% who choose power over comfort. Silence is not the absence of thought. It is the presence of overwhelming power. To understand the discipline of the void, we must look at the damp, smoke-filled interior of the garrison during the first season of the Shelby Chronicle. Two men from the IRA enter the lion's den. They are loud, they are volatile, and they are armed with threats and the self-importance of their cause. They expect a negotiation, a plea, or at the very least, a reaction. What they encounter instead is the terrifying vacuum of Thomas Shelby's silence. Tommy does not stand up to greet them. He does not offer a defensive justification for his actions. He simply sits. He smokes. He pours a drink. He lets the silence stretch until it becomes a physical weight in the room, a suffocating fog that the IRA men realize they cannot fight. In this scene, the internal psychology of Thomas Shelby is a masterclass in sensory deprivation. By refusing to speak, Tommy is stripping his opponents of any data points they can use to read him. He understands that in any high-stakes interaction, the person who speaks first to fill a silence is the one who is losing the battle of nerves. Tommy isn't just not talking, he is actively observing the micro-tremors in their voices and the frantic pacing of their eyes. He knows that silence creates a psychological mirror. When you say nothing, people do not see you. They see their own insecurities projected back at them. The IRA men begin to ramble, adding more threats and revealing more of their hand, simply because the human brain is biologically wired to find silence intolerable. Tommy's silence is a predatory stillness, the moment a tiger freezes before the strike. He is not hiding. He is calculating the exact trajectory of their downfall while they exhaust their kinetic energy on empty noise. This strategy is the physical manifestation of Niccolò Machiavelli's core tenet in The Prince. A ruler must be a great pretender and a dissembler. Machiavelli argued that it is not necessary for a leader to actually possess all the virtues, but it is absolutely vital that he appears to possess them. Silence is the ultimate tool of dissimulation. By saying nothing, you appear to have a bottomless well of hidden knowledge, and hidden resources. Machiavelli knew that the masses are always taken by appearances and by the outcome of an event. When you remain silent, you maintain the reputation of being great and remarkable because people cannot find the boundaries of your intellect. You become an enigma, and in the world of power, the enigma is always more feared than the man who is transparent. Machiavelli's prince understands that people are more likely to respect a man whose depths they cannot see than a man who reveals his entire soul in a moment of nervous chatter. In the modern social zadrez, the contrast between the common man and the man of power is staggering. The common man is a slave to social lubrication. He enters a meeting or a social gathering and immediately feels the itch of silence. He fills it with useless facts, self-deprecating jokes, or small talk that signals to everyone in the room that he is uncomfortable in his own skin. He is a leaker of energy. He thinks he is being likable, but he is actually broadcasting his vulnerability. He is signaling that he needs the approval of others to feel safe. The man of power, the modern Shelby, uses silence as a filter. He understands that silence is a vacuum that sucks the leverage out of his opponent. Whether it is a corporate negotiation or a high-stakes social interaction, he knows that the first person to break the silence is the one seeking validation. To apply this discipline of the void in your life today, you must master the 3-second rule. In your next interaction, be it a high-level career negotiation, a confrontation, or even a date, when the other person finishes speaking, or when a question is posed to you, do not answer immediately. Wait 3 full seconds while maintaining calm, neutral eye contact. During these 3 seconds, the void will do the work for you. You will feel the other person's heart rate increase. You will see them start to reconsider what they just said. You will see them begin to seek your approval. By the time you finally speak, your words will carry 10 times the weight because they were born out of a deliberate choice, not a reflexive need to be heard. You are not just a participant in the conversation. You are the architect of its pace. You are training the world to wait for you rather than you chasing the world. This is how you begin to build your sovereignty. This is how you cease being a background character and start becoming the monolith. The void is where your power begins. Do not fear it. Occupy it. Your eyes are not merely organs of sight. They are the primary weapon system in your psychological arsenal. They are the windows through which the world gazes into your internal sovereignty. And if those windows flicker, your entire architecture of power collapses. To master the art of the anchored gaze, we must dissect the high-stakes theater of the 4th season, specifically the moment the Sicilian shadow falls over Birmingham. Luca Changretta, a man who carries the weight of the American mafia, enters Thomas Shelby's office. This is not a meeting. It is a declaration of war. Luca is performative, leaning over Tommy's desk, placing spent bullets representing the Shelby family members he intends to execute. He is trying to trigger a biological response. He wants to see Tommy's eyes dart to the bullets, to the door, or to the movements of his hands. He wants to see the flicker of a prey animal realizing it is being hunted. But Thomas Shelby does not give him the satisfaction of a single reflexive movement. As Luca speaks of vendettas and blood, Tommy remains rooted. His gaze is anchored directly into Luca's soul, with a calculated coldness that borders on the inhuman. Even as Luca tastes Tommy's own gin and mocks his enterprise, Tommy's eyes do not scan for an exit or look down in submission. By maintaining this unyielding ocular lock, Tommy is communicating a terrifying truth. You may have the bullets, but I own the air you are breathing. He is refusing to acknowledge Luca's attempts at intimidation. Internally, Tommy is performing a total suppression of his sympathetic nervous system. He understands that the moment his eyes break contact or display a rapid scan of the room, he has conceded the status of the hunted. Instead, by staring back with the stillness of a statue, he forces Luca to become the one who must escalate his theatrics to get a reaction. In the world of the 1%, the man who reacts is the man who serves. This ocular dominance is the physical manifestation of a core Machiavellian truth. It is far better to be feared than to be loved if you cannot be both. In The Prince, Machiavelli explains that love is held by a chain of obligation which, because men are selfish, is broken whenever it serves their purpose. But fear is maintained by a dread of punishment, which never fails. When you hold a gaze without flickering, you are instilling a primordial dread in the opponent. You are signaling that you are a man prepared for any consequence, a man who cannot be startled, and therefore a man who cannot be controlled. Machiavelli taught that a leader must maintain an air of formidable gravity. If your gaze is shifty, you look like a pretender, someone who is playing a part but fears being found out. If your gaze is anchored, you are the reality. You are the lion that Machiavelli urged every prince to become, a creature that does not need to roar because its very presence, captured in a steady, unblinking look, is enough to paralyze the wolves of the social order. The massa, the common men who populate the background of your life, are ocular drifters. They enter a room, and their eyes immediately begin a frantic search for approval. They look at the person they perceive as the leader to see if they are being accepted. They look down when they are challenged, a submissive reflex inherited from our primate ancestors. They blink rapidly when they are nervous, broadcasting their internal chaos to everyone in the vicinity. This eye flickering is a confession of low status. It tells the world that you are a prey animal, scanning for threats or permission. The man of power, however, moves his eyes with the heavy deliberation of a turret. He fixes his gaze on his objective and forces the world to adjust to his focus. He does not seek eye contact to ask for permission. He holds eye contact to demand recognition. To apply the anchored gaze in your modern Zadrez social, you must begin the practice of the slow blink. In high-stakes conversations, whether you are being reprimanded by a superior or engaging in a negotiation, consciously reduce your blink rate. A rapid blink is a biological signal of high cortisol and anxiety. By slowing your blink, you are manually forcing your brain into a state of calm sovereignty. Furthermore, never be the first to break eye contact when a silence occurs. Let the other person look away first. This is not about being creepy or aggressive. It is about being immovable. When you are walking through a crowded street or a corporate hallway, do not look down at your phone or at the ground. Keep your gaze at horizon level, looking through people rather than at them, until you choose to engage. This ocular posture signals that you are the architect of your path, and others are merely obstacles that must move to accommodate your trajectory. Master your eyes, and you master the room. If the eyes do not flicker, the soul does not tremble. Motion is a confession. Every time you move a muscle without a strategic purpose, you are leaking energy and broadcasting your internal state to anyone with the eyes to see. To command respect without a word, you must master kinetic economy. Look at Thomas Shelby as he walks through the Lanchester factory. The air is thick with sparks, the noise of industry is deafening, and he is surrounded by hundreds of men who both fear and loathe him. Yet, Tommy moves as if he is walking through a quiet cathedral. His arms do not swing with the exaggerated rhythm of a man trying to look busy. His head does not tilt or swivel to acknowledge the distractions around him. He moves as a single, solid monolith in motion. There is a terrifying stillness in his movement. He is a predator that has no need for wasted effort because he is completely certain of his destination. Inside the mind of Thomas Shelby, every step is a calculation of status. He knows that fidgeting, the constant adjusting of a tie, the tapping of a foot, the touching of the face, is the body's way of trying to discharge nervous energy. It is a submissive display that says, "I am uncomfortable in this space, and I am trying to soothe myself." By eliminating these micro-movements, Tommy presents himself as a man who is entirely comfortable with the weight of his own power. He understands that in the hierarchy of the streets, the man who is the most still is the man who is the most dangerous. A bomb does not tick. It simply sits until it is time to explode. When Tommy sits in a chair, he occupies it fully. He doesn't shift his weight. He doesn't cross and uncross his legs. He becomes part of the architecture. This stillness creates a psychological gravity. See? Because he moves so little when he does move, when he finally reaches for a cigarette or slowly tilts his head, that movement carries the weight of a decree. Niccolò Machiavelli, the architect of cold realism, understood that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. He argued that the perception of a prince's character is built entirely on the external image he projects. If you look like a leader, the world will treat you as one. Machiavelli emphasized that a ruler must avoid being perceived as fickle, frivolous, effeminate, mean-spirited, or irresolute. DT, fidgeting and wasted motion, are the physical markers of a fickle and irresolute mind. By maintaining a rigid kinetic economy, you are projecting the majesty that Machiavelli deemed essential for a prince to remain secure in his power. You are signaling that your mind is so focused, so ironclad in its intent, that your body has no need for the trivialities of nervous movement. You are becoming the lion who intimidates through his sheer, unbowing posture, ensuring that no one should even think of deceiving or tricking him. The common man is a slave to his own biology. He is constantly leaking his status through kinetic noise. Watch the average man in a waiting room or a boardroom. He checks his phone every 30 seconds. He adjusts his posture constantly. He touches the back of his neck. He bites his lip. He is a walking broadcast of insecurity. He is trying to disappear or blend in by being busy with small, useless actions. This is the behavior of the massa, the people who are ruled because they cannot even rule their own limbs. The man of power recognizes that his physical stillness is a shield. By remaining kinetically silent, he makes it impossible for others to read his level of stress or his next move. He becomes an unreadable factor in the social equation, and in the absence of information, people will always default to a position of cautious respect. To apply this kinetic economy in your life today, you must treat your body as a temple of stillness. When you are sitting in a meeting or in a public space, make it your mission to remain completely still for 10 minutes at a time. Keep your hands visible, placed on your knees or on the table, but do not move them. Eliminate the submissive touch. Never touch your face, hair, or neck during a conversation. These are pacifying behaviors that signal to the brain of the observer that you are under threat. When you walk, walk with a deliberate pace, keeping your shoulders back and your head level. Imagine there is a thread pulling you from the top of your head, keeping your spine a perfect, unmoving column. If you must reach for an object, a glass of water, a pen, a phone, do it with a slow, intentional grace. Do not snatch at things. By slowing down your physical world, you are signaling to everyone around you that you are the one who dictates the tempo of the environment. You are not reacting to the world. The world is reacting to the stillness of a Shelby. The world believes that power is a monolith of iron and stone, but true sovereignty is a fluid, deceptive thing. To rule, one must understand the art of strategic vulnerability, the calculated display of humanity used not to connect, but to conquer. To see this in its most lethal form, we look toward the second season, in the salt-crusted air of Alfie Solomon's distillery. Thomas Shelby sits across from the Jewish baker, a man who is as volatile as the spirits he distills. Tommy is under immense pressure. His family is being hunted, and his plans are fraying at the edges. In this moment, Tommy does something the tough guys of the streets would consider a death sentence. He shows a crack. He admits to Alfie that he is tired. He lets his voice carry a hint of desperation. He presents himself as a man who has been pushed to the absolute limit, a man who is ready to gamble everything on a single, mad act of destruction. He tells Alfie that he has wired the entire room to blow, that he has a grenade ready to take them both to hell. The internal psychology of Thomas Shelby in this confrontation is not one of genuine despair, but of masterful social chess. Tommy knows that Alfie Solomons is a predator who smells fear like a shark smells blood. By intentionally leaking a specific type of vulnerability, the desperation of a man with nothing left to lose, Tommy is actually setting a trap. He is manipulating Alfie's perception of the power balance. If Tommy had entered the room acting like an invincible king, Alfie would have looked for the structural weakness in that armor. But, by presenting the weakness himself, Tommy controls where Alfie looks. The desperation Tommy displays is the bait that lures Alfie into a negotiation he never intended to have. Tommy isn't venting his feelings. He is using his emotions as a smokescreen to hide the fact that he is still the most composed man in the room. He is playing the part of the madman to ensure that the rational Alfie Solomons blinks first. This is the living embodiment of Niccolò Machiavelli's instruction that a prince should seem merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and upright, but should be prepared to be the opposite. Machiavelli understood that the appearance of virtue, or even the appearance of a human flaw, can be more useful than the reality of strength. He taught that a leader must be a great pretender and dissembler, because men are so simple and so much a slave to their present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. By showing humanity or vulnerability at a strategic moment, you are utilizing what Machiavelli called the way of the fox. You are recognizing the traps set by your opponents and laying your own in their path. You are not being vulnerable for the sake of authenticity, which is a modern delusion of the weak. You are being vulnerable to recalibrate the opponent's expectations. You are keeping them off balance by showing them a version of yourself that serves your ultimate objective of sovereignty. In the modern landscape of power, the common man is a fountain of uncontrolled vulnerability. He vents his frustrations on social media to seek the likes of strangers. He tells his coworkers about his anxieties in the hope of finding support. He tells his romantic partners about his insecurities because he has been told that communication is the key to a healthy bond. In reality, he is merely handing over the keys to his kingdom. He is providing his opponents with a map of his triggers and a list of his weaknesses. He is a background character who thinks he is being real, but he is actually becoming irrelevant. The man of power, the Shelby of the modern age, understands that true vulnerability is a weapon of last resort. He remains an enigma, and if he chooses to show an emotion, it is a calculated choice designed to produce a specific reaction in the observer. He never complains about being tired, stressed, or hurt, unless that complaint is the first step in a larger strategic maneuver. To apply strategic vulnerability in your career or social life today, you must first commit to a total embargo on accidental honesty. Never reveal a genuine weakness out of a need for comfort. Instead, practice the false reveal. Folks, in a negotiation or a high-stakes social setting, find a flaw that doesn't actually harm your position and confess it to the other person. Perhaps you admit to being a bit too cautious or overly focused on the details. This admission makes the other person feel they have achieved a level of intimacy and insight into your character, causing them to lower their guard. They stop looking for your real weaknesses because they believe you've already shown them your soul. You are using your humanity as a tactical diversion, allowing you to move through the shadows of the interaction undetected. You are the architect of their perception. You are showing them the broken parts of the machine so they never suspect that the engine is running at a perfect, lethal efficiency. The greatest error of the common mind is the belief that presence is a matter of being seen. In the architecture of power, the most potent form of presence is actually absence. Scarcity is the mother of prestige, and nothing commands more respect than the man who knows exactly when to vanish. We see this masterfully executed in the third season, amidst the opulence and decadence of the Russian gala. The room is filled with royalty, wealth, and the heavy scent of old-world power. Thomas Shelby is the host, the man who has orchestrated this entire grand theater. Most men in his position would linger in the center of the room, soaking in the adulation and the status that comes with such a display of influence. They would talk to every guest, drink every toast, and ensure their face was seen in every corner of the gala. But Tommy Shelby is not most men. He enters the room, makes his presence felt with a few sharp, calculated interactions, and then he simply disappears. He retreats to his private office or vanishes into the shadows of the mansion, leaving the party to continue without him. This presence of absence creates a vacuum in the room. By leaving, Tommy becomes the primary topic of conversation. The guests begin to wonder where he is, what he is doing, and why he found their company insufficient to keep him there. His absence creates a Shelby-shaped hole in the social fabric of the evening, elevating his status from a mere host to a mysterious, almost mythical figure. Internally, Tommy is practicing the ultimate form of detachment. He understands that being too available is the fastest way to become a commodity. If you are always there, always talking, and always reachable, you are common. If you are rare, you are a luxury. Tommy values his own time and his own company more than the validation of the room, and the room respects him for it. This strategy is the physical manifestation of Niccolò Machiavelli's observation that a prince should have the reputation of being great and remarkable. Machiavelli understood that familiarity breeds contempt. He knew that the more a leader is seen in the mundane, everyday activities of life, the less the people will fear and respect him. He argued that a ruler must always maintain a sense of formidable distance. By being scarce, you ensure that every time you do appear, it is an event of significance. Machiavelli noted that the masses are always taken by appearances. Therefore, by controlling your availability, you control the market value of your presence. You are training the people around you to cherish the moments they have with you, rather than taking your presence for granted. You are becoming a remarkable entity, precisely because you are not a constant one. The massa, the common men who fill the seats of modern society, are terrified of being alone, and even more terrified of being forgotten. They stay at the office until 8 p.m. just to be seen by the boss. They stay until the very end of every party, desperate for one last connection, one last conversation. They respond to every text message within seconds, because they fear that a delay will make them lose their relevance. In doing so, they signal that their time has no value. They are broadcasting that they are a common good, available to anyone at any time for any reason. This is the behavior of a servant, not a sovereign. The man of power understands that his time is his most precious resource, and by withholding it, he increases its value. He is not hiding because he is shy. He is absent because he is busy building his empire. He understands that the world's attention is a limited resource, and he intends to capture all of it by giving away as little of himself as possible. To apply the presence of absence today, you must master the art of the peak exit. In your next social gathering or meeting, do not wait for the energy to die down before you leave. Instead, identify the moment when your influence is at its highest, when you've just made a key point, shared a successful insight, or commanded the room's attention, and then excuse yourself and leave. Do not give a long, drawn-out explanation for your departure. A simple, "I have matters to attend to," is sufficient. By leaving at the peak, you ensure that the last memory everyone has of you is one of high status. Furthermore, audit your digital availability. Stop responding to non-urgent messages instantly. Let people wait. Create a buffer zone of absence that signals to the world that you are a man with a mission that does not involve staring at a screen for their convenience. When you finally do speak or appear, you will find that the room goes silent to hear you. They are no longer just listening to your words. They are paying respects to the man who was important enough to be absent. Sovereignty is built in the shadows where the masses cannot follow. To reach the apex of the Shelby architecture, one must understand that the face is not a tool for expression, but a fortress of defense. In the world of high-stakes power, an unreadable pulse is the difference between the butcher and the meat. We find the definitive proof of this in the first season, during the orchestrated execution of Danny Whiz Bang. The scene is a masterclass in psychological theater. The atmosphere in Birmingham is thick with the scent of coal and the expectation of blood. The Italian syndicate demands justice, and the streets expect a killing. Thomas Shelby stands before a crowd of his own men and his enemies, holding a pistol to the head of his loyal friend, Danny. To every observer in that mud-streaked alley, Tommy is the cold, ruthless leader fulfilling a dark debt. His face is a mask of absolute glacial indifference. There is no tremor in his hand, no moisture in his eyes, and no twitch in his jaw. He pulls the trigger, and Danny falls. Internally, however, the psychology of Thomas Shelby is operating on a level of complexity that would shatter a common mind. He isn't actually killing his friend. He is executing a sophisticated fake to satisfy a blood feud while keeping a loyal asset alive. But for the deception to work, Tommy's mask must be flawless. He understands that if even a fraction of a second of hesitation or grief had flickered across his features, the Italians would have smelled the ruse, and his entire family would have been slaughtered. Tommy is practicing total emotional compartmentalization. He has moved his genuine feelings for Danny into a sealed vault deep within his psyche, leaving only the mask of the executioner visible to the world. He knows that in the theater of power, the truth is a luxury you only share with those who have earned it with their own blood. To everyone else, you must remain an enigma, a surface so smooth and cold that no one can find a handhold to pull you down. This ironclad control of the pulse is the ultimate fulfillment of Niccolò Machiavelli's most famous predatory metaphor, the lion and the fox. In The Prince, Machiavelli argues that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Thomas Shelby is both simultaneously. By maintaining an unreadable face, he is the fox, ensuring that no one can see the traps he is setting or the ones he is avoiding. By projecting an aura of lethal indifference, he is the lion, radiating a quiet violence that keeps the wolves at bay. Machiavelli knew that men are so simple and so much a slave to their present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. When you present an unmoving face to the world, you are effectively a blank canvas upon which your opponents will project their own fears. They will assume you know more than you do. They will assume you are more dangerous than you are. You are using their own imaginations to build your fortress. The common man, the background character of modern society, is an emotional leaker. He wears his heart on his sleeve, not out of honesty, but out of a lack of discipline. When he receives a stressful email, his shoulders slump and his face clouds over. When he is insulted, his neck flushes red. When he is excited, he babbles and overshares. He is transparent, and in the world of the 1%, transparency is synonymous with vulnerability. The massa believes that being yourself is a virtue, failing to realize that yourself is a collection of biological impulses that make you easy to manipulate. If I can see what makes you angry, I can control your temper. If I can see what makes you desperate, I can control your price. The common man is a book that anyone can read, while the man of power is a vault that requires a code no one possesses. To apply the unreadable pulse in your social zadres today, you must implement the 5-second buffer. When you receive bad news, an insult, or a high-pressure challenge in a public or professional setting, do not react. For 5 seconds, maintain a neutral plus expression. A slight, almost imperceptible hint of a smile that suggests you know something they don't. During these 5 seconds, observe your internal biological response. Feel the spike in your heart rate or the heat in your chest, but do not let it reach your facial muscles. This delay breaks the action-reaction cycle that most people use to manipulate others. By the time you choose to respond, the initial emotional surge has passed, and you can speak with the cold authority of a sovereign. Furthermore, practice information embargo even with those close to you. Do not feel the need to narrate your internal state. If you are stressed, do not say it. If you are winning, do not brag. Let your results be the only noise you make. When you become unreadable, you become untouchable. The mask is not a lie. It is the armor that protects the king. Respect is not a gift bestowed upon the virtuous. It is a tax you levy on the world through the sheer weight of your behavior. We have deconstructed the architecture of Thomas Shelby's sovereignty, and we have validated it through the cold realism of Niccolò Machiavelli. We have seen that power does not require a raised voice or a frantic display of dominance. True power is found in the discipline of the void, the stillness of the gaze, the economy of motion, the calculation of vulnerability, the prestige of absence, and the fortress of the unreadable face. You now possess the blueprint. You are no longer a background character in the drama of the masses. You have been initiated into the mechanics of the 1%. The world is a stage of shadows, and most men are blinded by the light of their own noise. If you speak too much, you step into that light where you can be measured, judged, and eventually discarded. But if you remain in the shadows of silence, you remain immeasurable. You become a factor that cannot be ignored because you cannot be fully understood. This is the essence of the Shelby secret: to be the eye of the storm, the only point of absolute stillness in a world of frantic, useless motion. I am issuing you a final command, A silent sovereignty trial to begin immediately. In your next 3 social interactions, whether at work, with family, or in public, you will speak 50% less than you usually do. You will not explain your silence. You will not apologize for your lack of input. You will simply occupy the space, use the anchored gaze, and observe how the power dynamic shifts toward you. You will feel the discomfort of others as they struggle to fill the vacuum you've created. That discomfort is their respect being born. Power is not loud. Power is the quietest thing in the room. It is the smoke from a cigarette in a dark corner. It is the look that never wavers. It is the decision that is made long before it is announced. Go forth and reclaim your territory. Stay cold. Stay sovereign. Move like a Shelby, and think like a prince.